Is the LG Reflect worth buying in 2021? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. Hey everyone, this is Andre here covering for Kevin on the Kevin Breeze channel, and in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the LG Reflect. This phone is provided by track phone carriers, and you can find it in stores for under $200. But what kind of value are we getting out of this phone? Well, we're about to find out. This phone comes with a 6.5-inch LCD display and has a resolution of 720p with a PPI of 264. The phone has an aspect ratio of 19.5 by 9. Now the brightness of the screen right now is at 100%, and I would say it looks pretty decent. The phone does run on Android 9 Pie, which I personally think is a little bit disappointing. I've seen a lot of entry-level phones at this phone's level and below running on Android 10, and I would like to have seen this phone running on Android 10 as well. We do have a water drop here for the front-facing camera, and this camera is 13 megapixels. Now this phone has 32 gigabytes of internal storage with micro SD card expansion. It's not exactly great, but I've definitely seen a lot smaller. To give you an idea of what that looks like, I do have the apps that a lot of people usually use on a daily basis downloaded onto this phone. It is taking up 63% of the storage right now. Now that being said, you can expand this with a micro SD card, but at the same time, I personally like there to be a little bit more internal storage on the phone. I would have liked to see this phone with at least 64 gigabytes or at least a variant of the phone with that much, just for the people who use up a lot more memory. Sometimes the SD card can be a little bit inconvenient, so personally I like to see a higher internal storage. But just to keep in mind, if you do have a lot of data that you use on the phone, you're definitely going to want to get a micro SD card to expand the storage of this phone if you do decide to purchase it. Now there's no wireless charging on this phone, unfortunately, but it does have a fingerprint scanner on the back, and we're about to test that out and see how fast it is. Pretty fast. Let's try it one more time. There we go. Definitely very responsive and very convenient to use. Now, as far as unlocking this phone goes, you can definitely use the fingerprint scanner. I personally use that often, but unfortunately, this phone does not have face unlock on it. Now, this is a little disappointing because face unlock is a really convenient way to access your phone, especially when you're using it in hands-free mode, and it's something I definitely would have liked to see on it. Taking a look at the camera of the phone, we do have a triple camera setup with a 13 megapixel rear camera, a 5 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. The ultra wide camera is really nice to see. These days, more and more phones are getting that feature, but there are still some that don't, so that's definitely nice because it's really useful. If you take a lot of pictures, you're definitely gonna be taking advantage of that feature sooner or later, so it's good to have. Now this is the normal camera mode of the phone, and to get into ultra wide, you just hit this button right here, and it gets that wider angle. Now there's also portrait mode as well. And portrait mode works on both the front and the rear cameras. Let's check out the front camera now. So as you can see, we are in portrait mode on the front-facing camera, and it does look pretty decent. I've definitely seen devices with a better front-facing camera, but for the level of this phone, lots of phones that are similar to this one have a lot lower quality, so this is nice to see. Just doing a quick test of the video mode of this device. We are shooting in 1080p right now. Also keep in mind the audio quality. So as you can see, this phone definitely has decent video. It can shoot in a quality up to 1080p, but keep in mind that the resolution of the display of this phone is 720p. So even if you shoot in 1080p, you're not going to actually be able to see the video in 1080p. Now internally, we're getting 3 gigabytes of RAM with the MediaTek Helio P22 processor. I did run a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on this phone. The single core score is 139, and it also has a multi-core score of 489, so not bad. If you're using the phone for basic activities like making calls, sending text messages, some light social media, and web browsing, it's gonna work out fine for you. But if you go into the realm of video and photo editing and gaming, then this device might not be enough for you. The phone has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery with 18 hours of talk time and 20 days of standby. So overall, the battery is very decent and it's going to give you a lot of life and power. Now that we've gone over the various specs of the phone, let's take a look at the hardware. So at the top here, we have a noise canceling microphone And of course, the earpiece is right here. And as discussed before, there is a water drop here for the front-facing camera. And again, reiterating that the camera is 13 megapixels. At the bottom of the phone, we have a 3.5mm headphone jack, our microphone, a USB-C charging port, and the speaker. On the left side, there's the volume up button, the volume down button, and a Google Assistant button. On the right side of the phone, there's a power button and the slot for the SIM card and the micro SD card. On the back of the phone, we have our camera setup and our fingerprint scanner. There's a TracFone logo near the top in the middle of the phone right here. And then near the bottom, we have an LG logo. Overall, the materials of the phone feel very high quality and it doesn't feel cheap at all. One thing to keep in mind is the fingerprints. As you can see, there are clearly fingerprints on this phone, and they definitely show up. And now let's take a look at what comes in the box. So in here, we got several booklets, including a quick start guide and some more information about the device. There's also a SIM card removal tool here, a USB-C charging cable, and finally a wall adapter. Now, in conclusion, is this device worth buying in 2021? I don't think this is a bad phone. The build is really solid and it definitely doesn't feel cheap, especially compared to a lot of similarly priced phones. It has some key features like a higher megapixel camera, an ultra-wide camera for that matter, and a fingerprint scanner that some other more inexpensive phones don't have. The storage of this phone is a little questionable. I personally would prefer a phone with at least 64 gigabytes of storage, if not more, instead of 32, but at the same time, you can expand the storage with a micro SD card. So it's not too big a deal unless you're using a lot of data on the phone. The processor is also very decent. It's not really going to be fast enough for you to run bigger apps and do a lot of photo and video editing and gaming, but at the same time, for basic activities, it's really going to be quite adequate. So in terms of whether or not this phone is actually good, I would definitely not say it's a bad phone, and I don't think you would regret purchasing it. At the same time, if you're anticipating a little bit more heavy use from your device, then you can get a phone that's a little bit better for not that much more. So at the end of the day, if you're looking for a really nice phone to do some basic activities with, then I would say this phone is worth the money. But if you do more activities like photo and video editing or more high levels of content consumption, or even think that you might in the future, then you might want to look at a device that's a step up because this phone might not be able to handle that much activity. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.